Yes, welcome in once again to Straight to the Chase here on the Fantasy Baseball Advice Network. I am your host, Chase Thornton, coming to you once again from the Mott and Bailey Basement Bar. And today we're going to be talking about the top 5 starting pitchers returning from injury that you need to have on your short list as we enter the fantasy baseball draft season here. Now, before we get started, I want to remind you to hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you're getting notifications whenever we drop new content here so we can continue to get you ready for fantasy baseball season and so you can chase greatness all season long and dominate your league mates. Now, we're just 2 weeks or so away from pitchers and catchers reporting, so time's a wasting. Let's crack one open here and let's get straight to the chase. All right, now we're going to go through these guys in the order of their current consensus ADP according to Fantasy Pros. So that means we're going to start off talking about the man himself. Of course, we're talking about Shohei Ohtani. Okay. Now, right now, Shohei is the consensus top overall pick. And of course, with his dual threat ability, and more importantly for us, his dual eligibility, that makes him also the consensus SP1 or starting pitcher 1 by default. Okay. So that's his ADP. That's where he's coming off the board, obviously. So it's not necessarily his ranking, but that's where he's coming off the board. So you're already drafted in first overall if you happen to be so lucky. So you don't need me to talk to you about that. But I do want to remind you here to pay attention to your league rules on his eligibility in drafts and on his usage whenever he does return to the mound, which doesn't look like it's going to be right away. Just keep that in mind when you draft him. Whether he's on the mound or not right away, you're going to be getting hella points from him at the bat anyway. So, remember that. But you don't want to miss out on a single or a single strikeout of what he's going to be able to offer you this season. So pay attention to those rules on his eligibility, especially, if you're in a league where you can only set your lineups, once per week and then you're done with it. You want to make sure that you're getting everything out of him that you can. Okay. Now, the last time we saw Ohtani pitch in 2023, he was only getting 4.4 runs per game of support from his Angels teammates support. And that was even less than their usual 4.56 runs per game that season, which was even less than the league average of 4.62 runs per game that season. So, he was not getting a ton of run support, and yet he still went 10-5 in 23 starts for a team that was under 500 by the end of the season. Last year, in contrast, the Dodgers were second in the league in runs scored per game. So I think he's going to enjoy a little bit of a boost to his prospects on the mound there in terms of, wins and losses. Okay. Now for his career, he's averaged about 5.2, 5 2/3 innings per start, I should say, with a career K per 9 of 11.4. So that means if you do the math, and we can do the math here on Straight to the Chase, he averages over 7 strikeouts a start for you. So he's going to hit like the champ that he is. And at some point this season, he is going to pitch like it again too. So if you find yourself in the lucky position to be able to draft Shohei Ohtani, enjoy that. But just like I said, make sure that you're using him according to your league's usage rules, using him to the best of your ability, to the fullest of your ability. Fun fact here, if you Google, how can you use Shohei Ohtani in fantasy? It will remind you, yes, you, his fantasy manager, to give him regular rest days when he's not pitching to avoid fatigue. Not sure how you are necessarily supposed to be the one giving him the rest, but it will remind you that on Google AI. So never change, Google AI, never change. Next up here is maybe the hardest call to make in drafts this season. It's the Christian McCaffrey of fantasy baseball. That's right. It's the Texas Rangers part-time ace, Jacob deGrom. Now, deGrom is coming off of his second Tommy John surgery, and he actually did pitch the tiniest bit late last season, if you were paying attention. He got 3 short starts in for the Rangers last September, and it was a minuscule sample size, but woo, to harken back to our last episode, woo, they were some intriguing innings he put in. A 1.69 ERA, 14 strikeouts, just 10 2/3 innings pitched. And that's kind of in keeping, though, with what we've seen from him lately. He hasn't seen a full workload since 2019 when he was the number 3 scoring pitcher in fantasy behind Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander. Now, if you remember, that was the second of his back-to-back NL Cy Young Award seasons, okay? And since then, best we've been able to get out of him is 92 innings and 15 starts in 2021. That's the most work he's seen in a season. That's the high water mark. He's so great. And it's been limited every year since 2019, but it's still been such good work, even as it's been limited work. It's a tough call with him. He says he's healthy. He says his goal is 30 starts this season, but like, isn't that every starting pitcher's goal there, Jake? I personally see him more for like the mid 20s in terms of number of games started. And I think that's being maybe wildly optimistic. I think the Rangers are going to limit him to try and have him healthy for an end of the year push there at the end of the season, if they find themselves in playoff contention there. But he's coming off the board right now as the SP 13. So starting pitcher 13, 50th overall. What you need to ask yourself is if you are comfortable with the risk involved at taking him there or taking him actually anywhere. If he's healthy, if he gets, say, 26 starts or so, you are going to love what you get out of him. I have no doubt in my mind. He's still Jacob deGrom. He's still maybe the best there is in the game right now out there when he's on the mound. But if he's in and out of the lineup, or maybe only gets 10 or so starts in and then is on the 60-day IL by mid-June, well, you're not only going to be hating life, but your fantasy team is going to be that much farther behind by virtue of missing out on what else you could have had there at that draft position. Listen, I'm not going to plan on taking him, okay? But if I have a spot, say, late in that 5th round and he's still there, it's going to be real hard for me to pass him up. And I don't think I'd let him fall past me in the 6th. I won't be doing that. But if you do end up with him, you need to be prepared to build your roster accordingly. Maybe shift your gears at that point in the draft. Maybe hedge against him missing a little bit of time there. So keep an eye on where he's going and how far he may or may not be falling. But again, if you take him, be prepared to make some adjustments as you draft then to kind of protect yourself there. So now, continuing with the two Tommy Johns theme, let's talk about Shane McClanahan of the Tampa Bay Rays, okay? Now, he's going at the tail end of round 10. Yeah, say 119 overall. That's good for SP 37, okay? Now, he had his second Tommy John surgery back in August of 2023, missed all of last season recovering. Now, he can have awesome stuff when he's healthy. All you got to do is look back at his 2022 season. He finished 6th in Cy Young voting. He was top 10 that season in ERA, in WHIP, in K per 9, in strikeout to walk ratio. If he can pitch to his career averages, say like if he can pitch to his 10.1 career K per 9, his career 1.105 WHIP, if he can do that over, say, 25 or more starts, you are going to be in good shape rolling him out there once or twice a week this season. The one thing to remember with him, though, and this is actually something to remember about all of the Rays that you draft offensively and on the mound, they won't be playing half their games at Tropicana Field this season, okay? The Rays are playing at the Yankees spring training home, Steinbrenner Field, thanks to Hurricane Milton there, tearing the roof literally off the place. So Steinbrenner Field, with its identical dimensions to Yankee Stadium, is not going to play as pitcher friendly as the Trop has been. Tropicana Field typically been one of the most pitcher friendly parks in the game. If you don't believe me, check the numbers, check the park factor. Okay. McClanahan hasn't always been really the best at limiting the home run ball. He's a lefty, which will help negate the real short porch in right there to some extent, but just keep in mind, he's not going to be getting that sweet, sweet boost from Tropicana Field, that Tropicana effect. So that is something to consider when you're, when it gets to that point in the draft and you're considering whether or not you want to take Shane McClanahan or not. But we talked about a former Mets ace. Now let's switch gears and let's talk about the pitcher who's going to be filling that role this year in 2025, talking about Kodai Senga. Okay. Got off to a real nice start last season, going 5 1/3 against the Atlanta Braves, struck out 9. And unfortunately, that was going to be the only start that he'd make for those fantasy managers who were lucky enough by I'm being sarcastic there, but lucky enough to draft him. First, he had a shoulder injury, then a calf strain, and finally ended up with triceps tightness, they called it. That kept him out of action for the whole remainder of the regular season. You did not see him again. So you got 5 1/3 innings out of the dude if you drafted him. He's going in the 11th round right now at 125 overall. That's good enough for starting pitcher 39. But that could be a real nice value spot for him, I think, if you get him there. Remember, in 2023, he struck out over 200 batters. He had an ERA at 298. That was good for 5th in the league. He is going to operate as the Mets ace by default. I mean, it's not going to be Clay Holmes, obviously, or Frankie Montas. Spoiler alert, no one should be counting on a second weird straight outlier season from Sean Manaea. I mean, that last year was nice. Sean Manaea was a good pitcher. That's not necessarily who he is or who he has been. But with, an ace workload for Senga, that's going to mean innings. And as we've talked about before, innings are opportunity. Okay. So Senga should be fully healthy. He's got the goods. That ghost fork pitch of his, that's a legitimate swing and miss weapon. If you haven't seen it, watch it, look up the numbers on it. I personally will be happy coming away with drafts with Senga, with Kodai Senga as my fourth starter. I don't want to wait and make him my third, but if I come out of there with him as my fourth starter, I'm happy because I think there are going to be good things ahead for him this season. None of those injuries look like they were long-term last season or anything that should be a bother going forward. It wasn't necessarily stuff he's had problems with before. So, expect a full workload out of him and expect him to pitch accordingly as that ace on that staff there. And so now, last guy we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about Marlins righty Sandy Alcantara. Okay, he's going just after McClanahan and Senga in drafts as the starting pitcher 43 in the 12th round there at 142 overall. And the 2022 Cy Young Award winner should be fully healthy for the start of 2025. He missed all last season, recovering from Tommy John surgery that he had in October of 2023. Kind of a common theme here. And now his 2023 numbers weren't quite that, before he got the injury at the end of the season there, his numbers weren't quite as good as that monster 2022 campaign there, but he was still pretty good. If you're familiar with that, still threw a bunch of innings. He had a nice walk rate, still had a decent walk rate of around 2.3 or so, I think, per 9. Part of his problem that season, though, was a jump in his home run rate over 2022, big jump, and a dip in his K rate. But if you've paid attention to Sandy Alcantara's career, he's never really carried all that great a K per 9 rate anyway. So he's going to enter 2025 healthy. And he actually finds himself right now approaching some pretty lofty positions on some of the Marlins all-time pitching ranks in a couple categories. And as I said, that's mostly a result of volume. Okay. If he can return to giving the Marlins over the 6.3 innings or whatever per start that he was doing before the injury, he was going deep into games for them. And if he can continue to do that, he should be able to return some pretty nice counting stats for fantasy managers, I think, this year. I like him a little bit better in points leagues for that reason, because I think he is more of a volume guy than an efficiency type guy. So he may not help your ratios as much as some other dudes. But if I'm in a points league, I'm probably willing to go a little bit over that 12th round, that late 12th round ADP of his. If I'm in need of a starter at that point, I wouldn't have any, hesitation in taking him as say a fourth starter, fifth starter there. But of the 5 guys that we talked about, obviously I don't have any problem with Senga. I don't think there's any reason to worry about Kodai Senga, because he's the only one who's he's not coming off a catastrophic injury, to his arm. He's coming off kind of a bunch of nagging things that all piled up on him throughout the year last year. Shohei, I think he's far enough removed. I think they're going to limit him enough. Plus, even if he doesn't take the mound, if you ended up with him on your team, you're getting Shohei Ohtani. You're getting the MVP, for crying out loud. These other 3 guys, they're the ones, especially when you talk about deGrom, who has, like we said, hasn't seen anything in 5 years, anything close to a full workload. McClanahan also coming off 2 Tommy John surgeries. Alcantara coming off a Tommy John. Those are the 3 that you've got to be comfortable taking that shot on. But hey, either way, 5 guys that if they can hit the mound and if they can pitch to their career numbers, even close to their career averages, could end up really, really helping you out here as you exit your fantasy drafts and you head into 2025 here. So that's going to do it for us here on Straight to the Chase. Again, like, subscribe, you know the drill, but also I want to remind you, get over to fantasybaseballadvice.com right down there in the ticker. You're going to find all my baseball content over there, podcasts, articles. Sign yourself up for membership. You're going to have access to our fantasy sports only social media platform, only fantasy sports on a social media platform. You can friend me on there. You can ask me questions on fantasy baseball, fantasy football. Heck, I'll even talk a little WNBA fantasy if you're so inclined. You get over there, you can curate your feed to follow only the sports you care about, but you'll also be able to interact with other fantasy sports enthusiasts. You can download the app and always be connected on the go. Trust me, if you're a fantasy sports guy or gal, you really can't go wrong. Again, fantasybaseballadvice.com, like it says down there in the ticker. Me, you can follow personally everywhere at STTChaseFFB. You can even find me at Chase Thornton on Untapped if you want. See what I'm drinking when I'm not sipping Mini Miller Lights here. But with that said, thanks for joining us. Until next time, we are going to get out of here, gone.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today. We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com.